And it's great, isn't it, to talk it over, because it was tough. It was really, really tough. But actually start talking about it. There was so many highlights to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about that race, that one in particular, but there's something about it. There's a draw. There's an addiction to it. There's something. Well, Rich, you know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've still got that itch to scratch.
Welcome to the Refuel and Reboot podcast. I'm Mark Gilmore, host of this episode, and in this episode we temporarily divert from the series topic of mental preparation for ultra events to catch up with two of my bikepacking friends who have recently just got back from the 2026 Atlas Mountain Race. This was an epic edition of the race due to the weather and conditions, and I wanted to catch up with them and get those first recollections and impressions from the race. It turns out they hadn't really met on the race, despite being no more than 20 kilometres apart on the tracker throughout the whole race.
I think, Matt, you were in the hotel. We were in a room where everybody was eating, and I slept in there. I think you were there when I got there, and I slept in that room because there was no beds left in the hotel.
Yeah, that might be when we met, you know.
And yeah. Neil Copeland was there as well.
Yeah, so I pulled in there, and the winds really started to pick up. And it was just got strong so quick, and you could hear the road signs clanging, and the door to the actual where you could eat the food. People were really struggling to pull that open, and you could see the grit on the camera. There's CCTV. You could see the grit flying past the lens. It was just wild, very quick. So that's when we started sending messages to Nelson saying,
So in this episode, I talked to Richard Hunt and Matthew Franklin. This was Richard's third attempt at the race, and for Matthew, his first attempt in the Atlas Mountains. Both were riding solo, and due to the weather, like many others, were racing the snail. The snail is the marker on the tracker that shows the minimum speed needed to reach the finish in time before the cutoff. This year, more than any other, more riders were in a virtual battle with the snail. So here's Richard and Matthew sharing a few thoughts about this year's 2026 Atlas Mountain Race.
Rich, do you want to start?
Yeah. So my name's Richard. This was my my third attempt at Atlas. I actually met Mark on the first one. That went pretty spectacularly wrong mentally. Last year, I suffered with a Sherman's neck after 1,000k. So yeah, it was definitely unfinished business. So I was definitely pleased to get a run this year on it again.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rich. And Matt?
yeah, I'm Matthew Franklin. It was my first attempt on Atlas, but my second mountain race. I did Hellenic in 24. Where are we now? 25? Yeah. I've been a cyclist since I was a nipper, BMX, mountain bike, road biking, but only started actual long distance in 2016. A 25-mile ride on a hybrid bike, which just about killed me. So I don't know how I found myself here. I've no idea. But
Well, I appreciate you joining this, and even though Richard, you completely left me stranded, because Rich and I did.
Yeah.
I applied for Atlas as well, didn't get in. Rich didn't get in, and so the two of us were going to go off and bike pack. In fact, we were going to do it next week.
Yeah,
we're recording this.
Adventure around Morocco, weren't we?
We were, and then he badgered Nelson, got a place, and went and flipping completed it, leaving me on my own, still to do it. So
still happy to go and play Morocco at some point though.
Fair enough. We will have to book that in. Well, that's a good sign, Rich, that you want to go back. So why don't you both tell me a little bit about, so how did you find the experience of the 2026 Atlas Mountain Race? Because from an observer's of dot watcher's point of view, which is what I was doing, the weather seemed to dictate this race. So what was the feeling on the ground? Can you give us a sense of what was happening, particularly at the beginning of the race when it was all a little unsure of what was going to go on? I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll go first. Yeah. I think from the get-go, really, I think a fortnight before, when we received a message on on Sporty on the app from Nelson to say that they'd had a lot of snow. They were expecting some of the trails to be washed out. So my initial reaction with kit choices I started to not panic, but you're thinking, shall I take that sleeping bag which is smaller? Shall I take this sleeping bag which is warmer, but more bulky? So whilst I was working, that was round and round in my head, but eventually I went for the lighter one and a bivvy. But just leading into it, there was something about Atlas, and I think it was a bit of a culture shock straight away. I think I thought the landscape would get into my head. Not that it's featureless, but I think it's just generally there's no greenery really in the majority of it. But yeah, I think leading into it, because it was so cold, the first night it was just brutally cold. I think it was probably 60k in, and everybody pulled into this hut, and there was people that were just absolutely drenched, just shivering. I've got my waterproof trousers out, which I forgot to put. Well, I didn't put them on simply because we were climbing for so long and it was so hot and sweaty. So I think that was partially the problem. That we were already wet, we got cold very quick. But my waterproof trousers failed the zip all the way down the leg, ripped. Yeah. So my hands were shaking. I was trying to sort that out, but just trying to get going again. But I think mostly it was the different environments, from going from freezing cold to boiling hot to wind to dust storms, sandstorms, and then all the route changes, which obviously couldn't be helped, and just trying to keep up with all that. But obviously Race Direction did a great job, and I couldn't have been happier with that. But I think it was, for me, it was a bit of a culture shock from being in Europe, on Alps Divide and all that. You kind of know what you're getting, used to that. I wasn't used to the resupplies, obviously, in Morocco, and nothing was familiar. My French is rubbish. My Arabic's even worse. So, it'd be whirlwind, I think, I'd say.
And Rich, I was going to say the start was kind of reminiscent of 2024. When,
it was, but when it was so wet.
Yeah, and the start got delayed, but this time the whole thing got changed.
Oh, we were just out in that, and that nervous anticipation beforehand was probably far worse this year, because it was so difficult to work out what kit to take. So when I flew over, I just flew over with so much stuff, because I really wasn't sure which direction was best to go for. And having the years before suffered with the heat, that it was unusual to have so much kind of wet weather gear, and I knew later on in the race it was going to be too hot. So it was trying to have that balance of what do you take, how do you not carry too much stuff. I've traditionally done that thing where you end up trying to carry everything, and then you end up with far too much stuff. But yeah, that first few hours in the race was far tougher than the last two, just purely because of that wind and rain. As soon as you got to the top of that climb, it was painful against your skin. It was blowing at you so hard. And I thought, well, I've been here on other races before. I just need to get down as quickly as possible and get out of this, because by hanging around, I'm not doing myself any favours here. And I managed to get down. I think I ended up there was a hut. It was literally just a little hut there was a Moroccan guy in there with a torch in the corner, and it was just like a little hay hut, and there must have been 30 riders in there when I got there, all kind of changing clothes and putting extra layers on. So I dipped in there, put an extra, I can't remember what I did, I put an extra layer on, and thought, all right, I just need to keep going, because this weather's in for the night. I kind of am aware that I'm not a quick enough rider that I'm ever going to be able to catch too much up. So I just needed to kind of keep going. And then to be fair, it did clear up later that evening, but it was just a matter of kind of getting through it.
And it was cold. It looked, we saw pictures and video of, ice, the road completely iced up, because the route was changed from the planned to, and most of that first 300 kilometers, 350 kilometers was actually on the road, wasn't it? It went out further east and looped round to CP1. So and it looked like that road was completely frozen on that first night.
Some very sketchy hairpin bends.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the severity of that first night had an impact on the rest of the race from an observer's point of view, because much more than before, there was a massive group of riders kind of huddled around the snail, ahead of the snail, on the snail, or just behind the snail, and it seemed to ebb and flow a little bit, particularly with that extra detour that came in a little later on the kind of the second night, but first end of the first full day. Matt, we mentioned earlier you had to take that detour due to the high winds. What was that detour like? It looked like it was really slow going.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to be honest, to the start, it was very windy, obviously, and then we went through. It was almost like a big wide canyon, and there was dust storms going everywhere, and it was beautiful. And I think down in the bottom there was a big dam. So I think when we started riding that, and it was quite picturesque, if quite windy. I kind of thought, I'm quite glad I didn't go over that pass. This is quite cool. But when you turned a corner, it was like being hit by a plank when you went into the wind, and I had to get off on the flat. I had to get off my bike to push my bike along the flat to get to a point where I wasn't, in a headwind. I've just never experienced wind like it. So, but then eventually we got onto a straight road, and it was just a constant barrage of headwind all the way. And when you saw a corner, you thought, oh, maybe I'm going to get a side wind or something. That's doable, but it was always in your face. And being on a mountain bike as well, on mountain bike tires, it was just a slog. It really was. And then you thought, maybe I should have battled harder to get over that pass. But yeah, brutal.
The nature of the ride, though, or the race changed significantly, though, post CP1. Yeah, it felt, I don't know, how did it feel? Was it like, I think, Matt, you just mentioned it was a slog. Was it a slog to CP1? And then Mel kind of mentioned in the podcast, she's like, once you got past there, it was like then the race proper started. The Atlas Mountain race that Rich, you''ve experienced before became a bit more prevalent with the off-road tracks and those, and a lot of people mentioned the sweeping descent into Afra this year on the podcasts and in comments and things like that. So how was that transition then once you got past CP1 and was into the Atlas race proper, the mountain race proper?
I'd say it was definitely a slog into CP1. Post CP1, it definitely felt we were kind of getting into familiar territory. The weather was kinder. Got into the section, the sort of 100-kilometer section with no resupply, where you've got the long sort of hike bike up, and then you've got that long descent into Afra. And the great thing with that, it was almost like the race was upside down for me, because that section I did, the descent into Afra, I actually did during the daylight, where both times before I'd done them at night. So I'd just never seen how beautiful it was, and it was such a lovely fast descent into Afra. It was kind of definitely a highlight of the whole race.
Yeah, it was. I think that the race never really started until probably 20-15k into CP1, because I got off the road, and then I had to climb these steps, which were really steep. I had to carry my bike up, and it was just that's when it went into the terrain changed, and it went into straight into CP1, and then after CP1 straight up I thought, okay, I'm in it now. This is where it starts. I'm not sure what was the mileage. What was the kilometre on CP1? Because
about 350, I think.
350, yeah.
Something like that.
Felt like it was like I was travelling all the way up to that. It was like I was travelling to the Atlas Mountain Race. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was probably somewhat a consequence of the route change that that forced it all onto the road. So how was it then after CP1, after Afra, getting into that? Rich, you'd done it before. You've done a lot of this route now, the old Colonial Road and on towards the coast. So and CP2 and CP3. So how was that section of the race for you both?
Yeah, John, I really enjoyed it. It was nice to be on familiar ground, which meant you've definitely got a bit of a benefit when you've been there before. You definitely move a bit quicker. The little tracks and through some of the dry riverbeds and stuff, you definitely navigate a little bit quicker and smoother. So yeah, that section up till the Colonial Road was really found quite pleasant. And again, I was there at a different time of day, so I did there's kind of a fairly long climb up past where the waterfall place was, and that so that was nice to kind of see that at a different time and get down there.
And sorry, Matt, carry on.
And I was just going to say I was lucky enough to do the Colonial Road in the day, thankfully, because of the bridges that had collapsed there. So we had to climb down into the canyon and then back out again, which wasn't as bad as it looked. But the Colonial Road, I think it got in my head a bit, because for one, something we'll probably talk about, but I'm still on tubes, which is always a surprise to everybody. I won't be
will you stay on tubes, Matt?
I mean, the reason being is because the way that everybody easily just in first gear, they just coasted up the Colonial Road over the rocks, whereas if I hit a rock, I just bounce off it, and and obviously at that point you're getting a bit of a sore bottom. And prior to that, I had 6 punches all in all.
Oh wow!
Tiny little thorns that were in the desert, that were on the center of the track. When you had to go from one side of the track to another, and I was picking them up. I was having to pick them out of my tire and then repair the little holes that it was making in my tubes. But it was mainly it was the ease at which people were riding over the terrain, and I just couldn't. A lot of it I had to walk. But yeah, Colonial Road was one of the points where I thought, oh, this is really harder than Hellenic. I'm still asking myself that question.
Really?
So the Colonial Road I actually really enjoyed this year. So the first time I've hit it in the light. So last year I did it in the dark, and it was just a slog. I had no idea what was going on. The bits where the road was washed away were tough because I was traversing them during the night, so that was difficult. But this time was far easier. But yeah, I was just blown away with the beauty of that. And I got to the top of that, and Mel was there with Nels and Rich Doodley, and I was able to kind of get my thoughts down on the podcast, which was just an absolute kind of real highlight of the event for me. But yeah, what an absolutely stunning. John, I enjoyed it so much. I think I said I'd like to ride back down and come back up again.
You did. I listened to that episode, and it was actually great to hear you both featured on the official podcast when Mel captured you both. It was great to hear you both. But yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, I've yet to do it. I never made it that far in the 2024 edition. So that episode on the podcast, on the official podcast, was amazing. I think Mel just waxed lyrical about that whole segment, and it was fantastic. And Matt, hearing you on the podcast sounded like you had picked up the Atlas cough that you get from the dust and everything.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure whether I knew I would be affected by it, because Hellenic I completely lost my voice from halfway right to the end, to the point where I couldn't answer the question when I was getting my brevet stamped at the finish, until I had some honey, which is great. But yeah, the I think the dust got to me a bit, but it didn't really give me a cough. It just made my voice. I lost the bass in my voice. So whenever I spoke to anybody, they just had no volume. You could see them trying to just back away. Like, I can't hear what he's saying. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether it's just me, and I'm a bit of a mouth breather, I think, especially when I'm out of breath. So that dry air combined. But everyone, pretty much most of the people in the checkpoints, you could hear everybody had got a really nasty cough.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I didn't get that. It was just a very dry throat.
Right. Oh my goodness. And it does. You pick that up from the dust in the air. Matt, you mentioned that it is quite a different environment to if you're used to riding ultras and things in Europe. A good comparison actually that you're saying about Hellenic to Atlas. They often get compared, which is the harder, and they're very different races, aren't they? The Hellenic and Atlas.
Yeah, but I heard that, I don't know whether Nelson said that Atlas was the easiest of the three, so the Silk and Hellenic and Atlas. But again, I'll probably never know the answer to this, but I think because I've not done it on a year where the weather's been normal, if there is a normal in Atlas, but I think because it was just so severe, the wind and everything, it was just a constant battle. Wind just affects everything, obviously, and it affected my ability to charge things because I just couldn't keep my speed up on, if there was a pass or anywhere. But yeah, it's I think what I loved about it was the geology thing for me. That I thought it'd be quite barren, and it'd get in my head that I'd have nothing to look at. But the geology was just it was immense.
Yeah, especially. Sorry, Matt. Rich, carry on.
And I was going to say, just going back, it was barren, but compared to the Atlases I've been to before, I've never seen it so green. Because of all the rain, there was so much greenery there compared to before.
They were saying that it's 7 years of drought that they've had there or something, and that the amount of precipitation over the winter has been enough to stock the reservoirs with an extra year's worth of supply. I think was the comment. That was pretty intense sort of weather patterns. Would you find yourself perhaps going, I think I'd like to attempt this one again?
Do you want to go, Rich, or is that?
Yeah, I would definitely say yes, because the first section was great, and Nelson, even though we were doing a road section which still missed off through the gorges and stuff, it was still a great section. But we got to the route I took, I got to go along the side of the gorge, and after sort of seeing it and seeing what we could have gone through, yes, definitely I'd like to go, and if nothing else, go and ride that first kind of 300k as it should have been.
Yeah
I think it would definitely be a highlight of the ride.
Right Matt.
I think well, I've got a T-shirt with the Gorges of Magoon on the back now. I haven't done it, so maybe at some point. I think I've got Silk mountain race in August, so I think after doing Atlas, and it was so tough. I think I don't know about you guys, but I come away from these things and I need time. I need time for my mind to just settle. There's anxieties that come in, and there's certain things that I need to change with my charging setup, really. But I think I need to get Silk out of the way. Not out of the way, that's the wrong word. Try and complete it, because it's double the time of what I'm used to. And then potentially, because I did get a finish in Atlas. I don't really know how that works, but I got a finish, but just not in the time frame. So I'm not really sure how far out of the time frame you have to be, because I was 10 hours, 14 minutes, I think, out, because all my lights, navigation, everything just went on the last 24k in the dark, and I was just stuck in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know where I was. And then I slept in a construction cabin with two Moroccan builders.
Hey.
on the floor. I had to wait for the sun to come up. So it was, yeah, it feels like there's unfinished business, but I've got other business I need to sort before I can even contemplate that.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because there's so many races now around the world. And as much as it'd be nice to go and ride every bit of every race, there's always another dozen races and dozen events I'd like to go and do. And I mean, there's only so much time, unfortunately, to go and kind of do them.
You hinted at it earlier on, and then you've just mentioned it again. That in that last couple of days, or that last day, you did come up against some charging. You said charging issues. So were you running a dynamo on?
I was running the Sun Deluxe, yeah, which has it's stood me in good stead for for many things. But I think I forgot that during Hellenic, that because of the hiker biking and everything, and because of the wind on Atlas, even if I was going downhill sometimes, I just couldn't get the speed really to constantly charge whatever I was trying to charge. And there were two times. One time I was on a pass with hairpin bends, and my light was flashing at me red, and it said 5 minutes. And normally that means I've got about 15 minutes on the light, and then bang, it's gone. You just plunged into darkness. But yeah, I had navigation that night, but it didn't have any lights, and because I don't want to walk off the edge of anything, and that was really frustrating. I was stuck for about 6 hours until the sun came up, because, as you know, in Morocco, when it gets dark, it's just, I've never known you can't see a hand in front of your face. So even with the moon, it just wasn't there. So that happened on the 4th night, and then on the 7th night, 24K from the end, I lost everything. I lost my phone, I lost my navigation, and then my lights went out. And that was it. I was stuck until 8 o'clock, until I could. I was woken up by these two Moroccans. They were making a cup of tea, and they asked me if I wanted one, and I just said, "Oh no, I've got to go." Packed all my stuff away, rode up and down the road to get my navigation, get some charge into it, and then it blipped. It made that noise, and I was away. But again, 24K in just headwind. So yeah, I need to come up with a better system, whether that's 20,000 milliamp hour battery banks, but still have the dynamo, because it is handy if the amount of road we had. But I just wasn't doing the speed that I needed to charge.
I think you'll have more joy with in Silk Road with the dynamo. I think it will work because there's longer instances of just riding. But yeah, Hellenic Atlas, where it's either up or down. And the hiker bike sections, yeah, it can wear you out. I think one of the things that I did was I went out, not sponsored, so this is just general knowledge, but went out and bought a couple of exposure lights, and they are very good because they've got such long battery life on them. I have a head torch, a joystick, and then a Max D that goes on the front, and they take a lot of charge. And so I was able to, on Atlas, for example, I was able to go until Taznak without having to charge them, either of them, and that was what, 3 nights through. So, and you're so right about the nights. They are long nights on Atlas at that time of year.
The mornings just don't come. You're like, it's sure it's going to get light. And Morocco's a funny place. As soon as it gets dark, everything is shut. There is nothing open at night. So, and even when it gets light, you're still kind of waiting for stuff to open. So, yeah those nights are long.
Yeah. Well, sorry, just to clarify that, I've got an exposure light. It only runs for 12 hours, and people will be thinking now, we've got a dynamo. Why have you not got a front light for a dynamo? And I think I don't have one because of that drag. I don't know what it is and the math terms in it, but that was a mistake. So if I run a dynamo, maybe just a little one, so at least I've got something. But yeah, I think I need to upgrade on the exposure lights, because they are very good. Again, not.
Yeah, I ran exposure lights, and yeah, they were brilliant. And I've got a 27 mega amp Anchor battery with a fast charger, so I know I can charge that from completely flat in a cafe in about an hour.
Really.
So I found that really useful. But it's that balance, isn't it, of trying to take just enough but not too much, because they are heavy, those things.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And yeah, and then if they fail, you're kind of stuffed. So
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned there about the finish, Matt. Let's talk a little bit about that, because the finish part, it wasn't an easy run in. I think everybody experienced a lot of wind coming in. So when you saw the coastline, thinking it was almost over, it was still a challenge going in. And Rich, if I remember last year, you got your Sherman's neck. You got it just before the sand, was that
Yeah,
right? Or did you do the
so
sand?
last year I got to within about 300k of the finish.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this year I'd no neck issues whatsoever. I changed my setup slightly. Last year I had a like a restrap hydration pack on, so I still had the pack on, but I didn't carry the water on my back this year. I had the water on the bike, so I think that potentially did help. But yeah, it was that last section. That last 300k is tough. It just is. You're up or you're down. And if you're not going up or you're not going down, you're going into the wind. It really is. You think you get to CP3 and it's there. I'm almost there, but you're not. That last section is tough.
As soon as I saw the sea, and you come down the hill, lovely tarmac hill, into the wind, and you think, I've got this, and then something happens. It all went dark, and then I was twisting, and I don't know what I was doing, because I couldn't see either side of me, and yeah, it never ended. Well, it did, but
And the sand, how was the sand? That's another trademark part of the route.
So yeah, I've got the sand. Actually, I've got an interesting story on this. So the sand, the morning I slept about 20k before the sand, and I stopped and I found a cactus and a nice solid bit of land. So I set my bivvy up next to the cactus, thinking this will be nice and dry. I'll have no problems here. I then woke up a couple of hours later to hear rain on my bivvy, and everything was soaked. So I kind of got packed up, cycled into the night, thinking, how on earth is this day going to get better? Because this has been job. This is not a fun start to the day. So it kept going, a little bit miserable for the first couple of hours, to be fair, but just kept going. And then eventually got to the sand, but lowered my tire pressures. But because of the rain, the sand was then actually potentially pretty hard. So I absolutely flew across the sand, because the rain had actually sort of bound it together and made it far easier to ride. So yeah, so that's kind of that sort of rain in the morning was definitely turned into a positive.
Right. It made the sand rideable for you.
Yeah, I think I was across the sand in about 45 minutes. And I rolled a whole lot. I just lowered the pressures down to about 9 psi and just absolutely flew across it.
Wow. Now, Matt, you were running tubes, so you couldn't really do that.
Well, I knew if you were running on sand, you needed to let your tyres down. But I think because I was being chased frantically by this rocket-charged snail the whole time, I think I ran in as there's a little school next to where the sand starts, and all these kids started running out. And anyway, we hit the sand. They're obviously all over the place. So I'm running 40 psi, so it's just digging in. And anyway, there was two Americans that we were just leapfrogging each other the whole time, and I saw them messing about with both their wheels, and I thought, I need to start the tires down. So I did that, And I don't know. I mean, they were like pancakes. They were so flat, my tyres, and I'd only got like a little hand pump. Another thing I need to get on these automatic things. But as soon as I did that, I was like a hovercraft. It was amazing. So I don't know whether with tubed it was easier. I'm not really sure. I'll have to try that one out next time I do Atlas. I find it quite easy to go over there, but there was all these little thorns everywhere again. So I was having to avoid them. They're just like a flat plant, dead, but these little thorns, and they were my kryptonite. But yeah, it was extremely windy again, so it was sand in the face, and I think it probably took me just over an hour, I think, just to get through that. But it was enjoyable. It was a new experience.
Fantastic. Well, you've kind of ticked off a lot of the Atlas Mountain Race bingo card items. Did you, let's go through a couple of them. Did you see the goat in the trees? Did you get the...
The only reason I went.
Yeah.
Camels? Did you get the camels this year?
I didn't actually see any camels. I saw some camels when I got towards the end, but I didn't actually see them on the route. I think I must have been going through just before the sand at night.
Yeah.
That's what I got there.
Yeah, on the sandy section, end of the sandy section.
Yeah, and you both got the Colonial Road in the daytime and the descent from Afra to Afra.
Yeah, the descent to Afra was that was good. That was a kind of another funny story from that. So just before that descent to Afra, there's a fairly long uphill section, a fairly kind of hiker bike section through the I think it's called the Beautiful Canyon. And I was going up there, and I ate halfway up. I took my glove off and I think I had a Snickers bar or something like that. Just ate about halfway up, carried on, got to the top, realised as I'd eaten, I'd left my glove behind. I must have just dropped it in the dark. Got to the top, and it was just one of those things. So I bivvied up the top for a couple of hours, and then had the long descent down to Afra. So I started descending after a couple of kilometres. I'm thinking, oh, my hand's a bit cold now. I could really have done with that glove. Literally, I come around the corner and there's a glove in my path. I could just see a glove in the path, and I'm like, whoa, there's a glove there. Any glove will do. So I stop, and it's my glove.
No way.
And it was my glove. So I put it on. So all I can surmise that's happened is somebody's come up behind me while I've slept. They've picked up my glove on the climb. They've come past me as I've slept, and then they've dropped it. I'm sure they've not put it there by accident. They have put it there by accident. They've just dropped it, and it was my glove.
Amazing.
And
that is amazing. That's proper trail magic, that, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's fantastic. Well, anybody that hears this episode and knows the story of the glove, come forward.
Come forward. I definitely owe them a beer.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's another thing off the Atlas checklist. The bingo card. What did you lose? What did you break?
Sun cream.
Sun cream.
Yeah, day 2. I was sitting having some nice pasta, and it took me so long to find it in my bags with that many pockets. It was only a small one. Eventually I found it because I could feel myself burning that day, and I couldn't find it again the next day. So I burnt the back of my calves, I burnt the top of my hands, my nose. So I've spent the last 2 weeks just rubbing and creaming everywhere, and you can't buy it. I tried various places. I even Googled the French for sun cream, which I can't remember what it was, and they just looked at me confused. No chance. So I tried to use, I got quite a few buffs with me, like snoods. Tried to put them in the back of my bib shorts so they'd just protect my calves a bit, but they kept on coming away. But it was generally only on the left-hand side that I was getting burnt. So take 1 or 2, maybe 3 sun creams and just hide them everywhere.
Very good. And then I suppose the other classic Atlas Mountain Race bingo card item is omelets.
So Yeah, omelette. So I started off in the first few days. I don't know. I was doing probably 4 or 5 omelettes a day. I then made the conscious decision on about day 3. I wasn't eating any more omelettes, and I didn't care when I got somewhere. If they offered me an omelette, politely, I was going to argue I didn't want an omelette and I wanted something else. um, and then, to be fair, it actually worked. I didn't really eat any omelettes after that. I kind of found other things, but I did find. I think maybe the stock thing. As soon as you turn up, they want to offer you an omelette, but John, if you do question it, there are kind of other things. Sometimes it was bread, but then they would bring out bread with all these kind of fancy peanut butter and honey dips and stuff like that, which was actually better than having the omelette, and made the bread far more palatable as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I had about 8 omelettes, and I think I had one. It was a bit questionable whether it was actually cooked or not. I wasn't quite sure, but like you say, that the bread, I loved the bread, and just the bowl of honey. I lived off of that. It was magical. But yeah, I haven't had an omelette since.
Well, and you see, I can't eat omelette. I'm allergic to egg. Well, to a degree, and that. So it was a challenge for me. So I was always waiting for tagines and that at the stops, which added a lot of time on as well. But yeah, the classic. How many omelettes do you eat? Not over the whole race, but how many are you eating per day?
It is. Yeah,
it is a bit crazy. I remember actually in Afra, I was stopped at that little shop there just off the track, and the only thing they could offer me, because the only thing they could do was omelettes. The only thing they could offer me was a can of tuna and bread. That was the only thing I had.
I don't like tuna, but there was one place I stopped and I ended up with like a tuna sandwich, because I'd rather have that than have the omelette.
Yeah. And when you get to Tasnac and then you go, I'll have pizza, please. What?
Yeah, I got to Tasnac in the middle of the night. I got back there about midnight, and everything was shut. And then some dogs chased me out of Tasnac. I thought I'd better find something, so I ended up. They kind of chased me out of town. So I just kept heading. And I went down to. I knew there was a petrol station coming up just before the left turn, so I went down to the petrol station and thought, John, please be 24 hours. Please. I get there and that's shut as well. So I slept on the forecourt at the petrol station for a few hours. Decided by, I think, about 7ish, it still wasn't going to open, and kind of carried on. So yeah, that was a hungry morning.
And moped your way into CP2.
Into CP2, and then ate everything I could. I walked in and just grabbed it and ate.
Well, CP3 was the food there. Well, I think you felt it was a little bit more westernized there, because I could get carbonara, not sure what the meat was, and a salad. I had a salad.
Yeah.
My cucumber was in the shape of a heart, so that made me feel much better. But just that salad itself, because I didn't feel I could get enough bananas or fruit or anything along the journey. So yeah, that was very welcome.
Yeah, I had spaghetti bolognese for breakfast, which was on a heart-shaped plate, which was absolutely amazing.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think that is probably one of the significant differences between the Atlas Mountain Race and the Hellenic Mountain Race, is that, and I think, Rich, you're thinking about going for Hellenic this year, are you?
I just can't quite fit it in, but yeah, I've not completely dismissed it yet. It wouldn't take much of a push.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Consider that a push. But yeah, Matt as well. It's a great race, and actually the food on Hellenic is exceptional. Yeah. The resupply, where, as long as you can find it, the food is outstanding. That was a big difference for me against Atlas, that's for sure. And Matt, you'll have to tell us what Silk Road is like.
Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to tell you a little story from when I got to the finish. Because I was 10 hours late and I knew all the organisers had gone, media had gone. I thought, I'm just going to have to take a photo of the finish and self-certifying, whatever. But as I got closer, there was somebody pointing a phone at me, and it was my mate Simon Bond, who you met on Hellenic.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was on holiday with his mate. They climbed up the highest pass. I can't remember what it's called. And he said when a few weeks ago he said, "Oh, I'll see if I can track you, and then meet you en route or somewhere." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be lovely, but I can't see that happening." Anyway, he tracked me to the finish line, and there he was with his mate, and they unpacked. They built my. Oh God, I can't even think of the word. They put my bike in the box and sealed it all up for me, and then we went to the market. They brought fish and we had it barbecued. It was fab, So I wasn't on my own at the finish. That was nice.
Oh, congratulations! What a great finish!
Yeah.
And kudos to Simon for that. So well done. What a brilliant ending. Well, what's going to be, I suppose we'll call this the last question then. What's going to be your lasting memory or thought from the 2026 Atlas Mountain Race? What's that? Is there one word, one sentence, or one feeling that kind of sums up your 2026 experience?
I'd say, I mean, it sounds a cliche, but the wind.
Yeah.
That just dominated everything. And for me, I think I probably would have been quicker if it wasn't for the geology. I took so many photos and actually picked up a rock that was really shiny, and I thought that weighs at least 400 grams, but I'm going to take it home for my girlfriend. But yeah, I think overall fabulous experience, and yeah, maybe again one day.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, I just had an epic time. I absolutely embraced it. I absolutely loved it. I took what I'd learned from the previous two editions I've not finished, and no matter what happened, I was finishing this. Whether I finished in time, out of time, whether I walked to the end, crawled to the end, I was determined. I got to. I had a conversation with my wife. She was going to be at the end, but I said, "Look, I'm due to be there hopefully for Saturday, but if it's Tuesday, you're going to have to wait," kind of thing. So, I had an absolute blinding time, and all those. I just had it in my mind when I started. I'm just going to keep going, no matter what happens. Just keep going. It will sort itself out, and it did. Things did just sort themselves out.
Mm-hmm. But as with all these races as well, I was going to add that generally when you get to the airport, I don't know how this works, but you meet a person or people with a bike box, and you get chatting, and they tend to be the people that you leapfrog for the next hey, I don't know how that works, but you just make you become a family, I think, in these races.
It's strange that, because that's how me and Mark met at the airport in Marrakesh, and then we kind of leapfrogged each other.
Yeah Fate.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated you giving some insights to this, to what was an epic week. Even just watching and following along the dots, it was fabulous. I enjoyed it from my point of view, and a massive congratulations to you both. For getting to that finish, and enduring and experiencing what will go down as probably one of the classic editions of the Atlas Mountain Race, for sure.
Well, maybe if you do it next year, it might be.
Yes, of course, your turn now.
Have a word with Nelson. I can't seem to get into any of the mountain races at the moment, so.
Send him a nice email.
I know, yeah. Grovel. Gents, it's been a pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you for having us.
No worries. Thanks, Mark.